Sunset opened her eyes and found herself staring back in the open field she had been in the night before. The last rays of sunlight could be setting down her western horizon. Kayla began to shine with gray, dazzling lights. Rain whipped around her face as the gale picked up, sending ripples across the grass. Sunset set her eyes as the wind rose to a mighty hurricane, before stopping just as quickly as it started. When she looked again, she was face to face with Princess Luna. Sunset Shimmer, I'm glad to see you unharmed, Luna said in a neutral tone. In case Sunset to your present, this was more of a formality than anything. More or less. Thanks to you, though, if you hadn't woken me up when you did. Sunset moved a hoof to her throat. Luna gave a genuine smile this time. Glad I could be help. Now, I wish to help you even further, if you're willing, that is. Sunset visited, recalling Luna's offer to dive deeper into her subconscious. Sunset was sure she would find some unsettling truths lurking there. Despite her overwhelming desire to know what those truths were, she couldn't ignore the part of her shine that this was a bad idea. I can see you're still indecisive, Luna regarded her. Sunset sighed and gave it a nod. I'll be honest, I'm terrified of what we'll find. I saw Vesper Radiance and she looks just like me. Luna turned for Caroline and strode across the large field. Well, Twilight neglected to mention that in her letter, although I'm sorry to say I figured as much. With Luna's longer legs and quicker gait, Sunset had to trot to keep up with her. She made a mental note to thank Twilight for her sensitivity on the situation before asking, What do you mean? You knew who Vesper was the whole time? I had deep suspicions, but I could not confirm anything. I chose to believe you indeed came from the future, that you were born and raised many years from now, and had tutelage under Twilight Sparkle. When I came to a stop on another hill, my sister told me another story shortly before I met you. She had a student named Sunset Shimmer who had practically grown up on the Celestia's wing. They had fallen out many years ago, not too unlike the one I had with her. Luna whispered with sorrowful eyes. Sunset sat down in the grass and stared at the mountainside city. Despite her walk, it didn't seem to have moved any closer. Yeah, Vesper mentioned being Celestia's former student. Sunset's eyes narrowed. But wait, you said this happened years ago? She was the same age as me. Luna held a wing to her forehead. I was afraid of that as well. Celestia said you were the spitting image of her student before she vanished. I spent hours trying to research how such a phenomenon could be possible. No pony had saw the first sunset ever again. Then you appeared along with a hooded figure who wants to become an Alicorn. I knew it was the sunset of old, but I could not find anything that would explain the coexistence of the you two. Luna looked up at the twinkling stars overhead. 2 pennies, yet you carry with you memories of the other. Sunset slouched over and folded her ears against her head. I want to know what it means, but Sunset looked down at her hoof, wondering if there was a carapace or if it had been crafted from artificial materials. Maybe some things are better left unsaid. Sunset. Luna bent her neck down to regard her. I know you are afraid, but you cannot let those fears control you. Yes, sometimes the truth is scarier than the unknown. Could you honestly say you would be happier not knowing the truth? No, I guess not. If me and her are connected somehow, if I'm not who I think I am, I guess I should know. Know your enemy, know yourself, and all that, right? Sunset tried to laugh and cleared the butterflies out of her stomach. It came out more strangled than intended. Do not worry, Sunset. I will be with you every step of the way, Luna said warmly. Great. Sunset looked around. How exactly do we start? These are your memories, Sunset. If you do not remember them, they still exist within your mind. You just need to find a way to access them. A way to access them. Sunset said to herself. She was not very familiar with the concept of lucid dreaming. She was sure the only reason she was aware right now was because Luna was there. How could she find memories, let alone ones she couldn't properly remember? Concentrate, Sunset. Think about what you know and what's familiar to you. What's the best way to find something you need to learn? Sunset gasped, a smile crossing her face. The second the thought entered her head, a fine mist appeared around her and Luna, scaring the environment. No longer an grassy knoll. Instead, high vaulted walls surrounded them with a glass skylight, overhead letting in ribbons of afternoon sunlight. The room was circular, with books lining all of the walls and orderly fastened. A red carpet was rolled out underneath their hooves, mustard yellow swirls in the sunset looked like one of the rooms in Camelot Castle Library, one of her favorite places to study. She walked over to one of the cells and pulled out one of the book, reading the cover. Early Foalhood, she read aloud. Just holding the book recalled distant memories of her father pushing her on the swing set, or her mother putting on a puppet show with magic. Placing the book back, Sunset selected another one titled First Friends. Sunset remembered some of her early days at Magic Kindergarten, meeting her best friends who she would lead into trouble time and time again. She grinned at the warm memories as he put the book back where it belonged. These are all mine, Sunset concluded, quickly taking peeks at more of the covers and feeling the memories pour through her. She looked at Luna, sitting in the middle of the room and watching with interest. Aren't you going to help? Luna shook her head. These are your memories, not mine. I have no right to touch them. I am merely here to guide and observe, and if need be, protect. She lifted her hoof and gestured towards the door at the other end of the room. I said yes, checking through there. Sunset put back the book she had been holding and approached the wooden door. There was no handle or lock to it. It just had been added to the wall as an afterthought. Yet there was a cold, almost lonely presence coming from the other side. Sunset hesitated, stopping in front of it and staring with wide eyes. The ground began to shake, and Sunset looked down, realizing it was only her legs trembling. Luna stepped up behind her. We all have fears, Sunset. But it's our duty to face those fears, or they will continue to haunt us. Taking a deep breath, Sunset pushed the door open, cold air slapping her face. She pressed forward, stepping into the gray shadows of the next room. It looked exactly like the other one, except there was no light emanating from it anywhere other than the door behind her. The glass ceiling depicted the sky as night. The torches had not been lit. Sunset took a step inside, stopping as a cold giggle reached her ears. Look who's decided to come for a history lesson. A darker shadow appeared before sunset, materializing in the blink of an eye. Its outlines were indistinguishable now. It was great pain that Sunset recognized it as herself. There was a sound of magic being charged behind Sunset. She turned to see Luna baring her teeth at the shadow. Begone, creature! You are not welcome here! Xiao waved a dismissive hoof. It's me wherever the hell I please. It snickered, fancy as Luna fired a spell at the spot it had been standing. Spoil sports. Oh well, if you come to side with me anyway, Sunset, I'll just let the memories speak for themselves. Maniacal laughter filled the room, reverberating through Sunset's ears. When it finally faded, Sunset found a use of her legs as he wobbled over to the nearest bookshelf. No more distractions or interruptions. It was time to learn the truth. She picked the book out, feeling the dusty cover against her fur. The orphanage was the tile, and faint flickering memories trickled into Sunset's head, hazy, distorted. Luna appeared over her shoulder. Open it, she said with a soft command. Sunset flipped it to a random page. Instead of words, there was only a picture. Just one that filled both sides of the page. The longer Sunset stared at it, the more it seemed to be moving. She was looking at herself, or at least a younger Sunset, sitting on a small cot, wiping her eyes like she had been crying. The image began to grow larger, accompanying all vision until... Sunset simmered out of her bed, trying her best not to cry as the older filly crossed from her finished packing her bags. The room they shared was a small one, enough for only 2 beds and 2 dressers. The walls were painted hard with bright colors, though, as they tried to make up for the cramped space. Biting her lip proved to be ineffective. Sunset burst into a wave of tears. It's not fair! Sunset pounded the over-springing mattress. The other ponies looked at her and smiled sadly. She walked over to creaky floorboards and wrapped Sunset another hug. Oh, Sonny, please stop crying. You're gonna make me cry again. It isn't fair, though, Sunset sobbed. You're leaving me. Now I don't have anyone to play with or read me bedtime stories. She pressed her face into her friend's yellow coat. Lemonheart, why haven't I been adopted yet? I've been here my whole life. Sunset couldn't even remember the faces of her parents, just a never-ending smile in Miss Sunshine. Lemonheart squeezed Sunset tighter. I promise you, Sonny, Some family is going to walk through that door and eat you up like candy someday. Just give them more time. Sunset pulled her away from wiped a few tears from her face. You really think so? I know so, Lemon said brightly. And I promise you, I'll write you as often as I can. That's what Cloudy said too, says it crossed her hose in a pout. Lemon ruffled her mane. Then I'll write you as soon as I get settled in, okay? Sunset nodded, okay. They hugged one last time, and Lemon whispered into Sunset's ear, You're special, Sunset. Someday everybody will see it. There was a knock on the door, and both girls turned to see Miss Sunshine standing in the doorway, beaming brightly at them. Oh, that's so cute! I really hate to break you two up, but Lemonheart, your new family is ready to go. You don't want to keep them waiting, do you? Lemonheart nodded her head and squeezed Sunset one last time. I'll write soon, I promise. She grabbed her bags and followed Miss Sunshine out the door, leaving Sunset alone. She sighed, wanting to believe that Lemon would write to her. And she probably would, once, maybe twice, just like Cloudy. Just like Whistler, just like Periwinkle. Lemon would write a letter telling her how great her new family was, all the new friends she made, and all the adventures she had already been on. And Sunset would never get another letter. Maybe this time will be different. Maybe Lemon won't forget me. Sunset reached under her bed and pulled out her main books. She sighed again, opening to a bookmark page. It was best not to get her hopes up. Sunset pulled herself out of the image, watching as it shrank back onto the page and slowed to a stop. In the back of her eyes, Sunset could still see a few faint memories of the other sunset time in the orphanage. They were short and fleeting, but Sunset could tell her other had only received a hoofful of letters before they stopped coming. She looked up at Luna, still standing over her shoulder. Did you see that too? Luna nodded. I did. With it, I'm already beginning to put the pieces together. Really? I mean, it wasn't that informative, but I don't think it shed that much light. Sunset closed the book and put it back on the shelf. She frowned and looked back at Luna. Wait, what exactly did Celestia tell you? Luna shook her mane. I have a growing feeling she did not tell me everything. You see, hard, it would be better to see everything first hoof. Find a book about your tutor that's under her. Perhaps that's what we should focus on. Sunset made a small humph, but Silent Luna was right. She moved down a row and pulled out a book titled Lessons. Flipping it open, Sunset saw a depiction of herself in the middle of a regal hallway. Once again, the picture began to move, becoming larger and larger until it was all Sunset could see. Sunset walked down the pristine halls of Carolot Castle, head held high and springing her step. From her back, book, notes, and quills rustled together in that saddlebag. She hummed a happy tune, ignoring any of the castle staff that waved or afternoon. Ascending a flight of steps, she arrived at a large set of purple doors. She knocked once before pushing them open and sticking her head inside. Princess? Ah, there you are, Sunset. Come in. The tea just got here. Sunset pushed her way to the crack of the door, shutting it softly behind her. She crossed the carpet to join Princess Celestia at the small table in the back, coming to a rest on the soft pillows that had been laid out. How was your day at school, Sunset? Celestia asked. She raised a silver teapot and poured generous amounts of tea in 2 cups. Then she added a spoonful of honeys and sugar to one before pushing it towards Sunset. Sunset lifted the cup with her magic and blew the layer of steam off the top before taking a careful sip. As always, the tea had been prepared just the way she liked it. It was good, Sunset said after a few sips. I passed my test on pre-equestrian law and trade. Celestia raised her own to her lips and took a short draught. Very good. I knew you had some trouble with that particular section. It wasn't so bad. Celestia chuckled. There's no need to be prideful, Sunset. We all have our shortcomings. Sunset shook her head and looked at Celestia with endearment. You don't, Princess. Celestia, putting down her cup down, Celestia said, Even I am not infallible. I have made errors that have taken years to fix. They both entered their own realms of thought while they drank their tea. Sunset looked at Celestia with all her elegance and poise, and knew she was probably exaggerating. Celestia was perfect. So, have you interacted with any of your classmates? Celestia asked. No, Sunset said flatly, bracing herself for a weekly lecture on the importance of friendship. But if Celestia continued to try, Sunset would never know. Closing the eyes, a soft exhale of breath, constant predecessors to whatever lecture Celestia was about to give. Sunset, Why don't you want to make any connections to your peers? You can't spend the rest of your life alone. I'm not alone, I have you. Sunset's look of serenity faltered in Celestia's withering gaze. I'm sorry, Princess. I just don't see any gain in making friends. Not when they'll just leave and forget about you. But Sunset, there is so much to be gained from making friends. Don't you want to meet other ponies who share like interests? Sunset took another drink of her tea and mulled over her answer. Also, she ever tried to make friends. She had done so once on Celestia's behalf, just to make her happy. Yet Sunset loathed the company she found herself in. Even at Celestia's school for gifted unicorns, outside of class, hardly any pony wanted to talk about advanced spellcasting or rune lore. No pony was as invested in learning as she was. No, social interactions were a waste of time. From then on, Sunset had decided there was only one pony worth talking to. Celestia inhaled deeply and looked at Sunset with wise, magenta, loving eyes. I know the opening challenges can be difficult, Sunset. But please, promise me you'll try. Sunset dipped her head. I promise. Thank you. Celestia leaned over and nuzzled her across the cheek. It was hard for Sunset to fully enjoy it with the guilt of eating her from within. When they finished their tea, the entire tray vanished in a flash of light, clearing the table. Now, before we begin our study session, let's work on your special talent, Celestia said, adjusting herself amongst the pillows. Sunset squealed into the light before putting on a serious face. She closed her eyes and tightened her focus, allowing her conscience to drift towards the astral plane. She pressed against it, feeling the warmth of the solar monasteries as they flew by. Though she hadn't tapped into any of them, just being close gave her a feeling of power. That's it, Sunset. Leslie's soothing voice reached her ears. Feel all the magic around you. Just feel it, nothing else yet. It's so warm, Sunset whispered. Yes, but remember what will happen if you're not experienced in using it, or tap into it for too long. Sunset grins. That was the first thing Celestia warned her about when they started the special training. If Sunset tried to use too much of the sun's magic, it could, quite literally, burn her from the inside out. Still, the fact that her special talent was being able to use the magic of the sun made Sunset shake with glee. Who else could say he had that level of power? Only one, and she was sharing the room with her. It could be destiny that Sunset would have a cutie mark so close to Celestia's. They had a connection no pony else could imitate. The feeling, the thrum of magic rising through her. Sunset vowed to be just like Celestia someday. Powerful, regal, and immortal. I'm finding this unhelpful, Sunset said as she slapped the book shut, placing it on the shelf. Trinity, I am finding this quite informative. Perhaps you are only looking for what you want to see, and not the whole picture. Sunset growled at Luna's cryptic words, but held her tongue and reached for another book, hoping it was something actually informative. Cadence, Sunset whispered the title, staring at the crystal heart in the cover. She could feel her anger pulsing just by looking at the name. Luna picked her ears up and leaned over Sunset's shoulder. Well, this one seems very promising. With renewed hope, Sunset flipped the book open, as this time she get a straight answer and learned where all this hate came from. Sitting in her tower, Sunset looked out the window, watching the clouds lazily roll by. Below, Camelot was a model playset sprawled before her, complete with moving pony pieces. Someday it would all belong to her. The ponies would look at her the same way they looked at Celestia. She was the rightful heir, after all. That's what Celestia had to be grooming her for. She rested her head on the windowsill, trying to indulge in the springtime tranquility. She held that position only for a few seconds before pacing about her room in agitation. She wasn't supposed to be here in the first place. She was supposed to be studying with Princess Celestia. Sunset puckered her face like she had tasted an extra sour lemon. What could be so important she had to cut our session short? We had only gotten started. She flopped on her bed and growled into her pillow. Okay, calm down, Sunset. She took a slow, meditative breath. She does have an entire country to run. I know. I just hate having our time interrupted. Celestia was the only pony who could understand her, connected with her. She was the only pony Sunset would trust and never leave her. Every second they spent together was precious time, even when Celestia was nagging at her to make friends. Sunset felt a familiar warmth blossom in her heart. Yes, Celestia was perfect. kind, caring, generous. She was almost like. Sunset jumped up from her bed. She's back! She practically threw herself across the room, swung the door open. However, what greeted her had died in her throat upon seeing her guests. Celestia stood looking as radiant as ever, smiling at Sunset like she had brought her a magnificent gift. The gift in question stood next to her, wearing a snide but inspiring smile of her own. She was pink, disgustingly so in Sunset's opinion, three-tone mane of gold, pink, and purple, the last color mossing her soft eyes. What really drew Sunset's eyes were the wings on her back and horns sitting on her head. Who is this? Sunset's voice was tight. She used all her strength to keep a straight face in Celestia's company. Sunset, I would want you to meet Miyamori Cadenza. Miss Cadenza, this is my special student, Sunset Shimmer. Miyamori Cadenza stuck her head out. Nice to meet you, she said pleasantly. You can just call me Cadence now. I know my full name is a bit of a mouthful. She let off a sound of clinking crystal cups that Sunset realized was her laugh. She stared dumbly at Cadence's hoof, then Celestia. She's an alicorn. Celestia gave Cadence a thoughtful look. Yes, she's done something that's never done before. She performed a great deed, and from it, fully learned and understood the value of love. As a result, Harmony deemed her ready to ascend. Ascend? Sunset stared at Cadence with wide eyes. Ponies could do that? Sunset always figured Celestia would one day name her a princess and that be it. But if one could become an alicorn, that places Cadence above her. So, is she a princess? Sunset asked. Yes, Celestia said, dumping a bucket of ice water in Sunset's stomach. Or rather, she's a princess in training. There's much she needs to learn before she is ready to lead a kingdom. Sunset turned away, taking interest in the scenery outside as her neutral mask cracked. I see. How very interesting. Well, I'll leave you two to get acquainted. I think you could learn a lot from each other. Perhaps you could show her around the castle, Sunset? Sunset grumbled something. So she assumed Celestia mistook for a yes. The door closed a second later, and Sunset was stuck with this interloper. She turned around, putting her pleasant face back on. So, Cadence, was it? Tell me more about yourself. How did you become an alicorn? Cadence pulled up some carpet and sat down. Well, there was this witch who was stealing love out of the village I lived in. She had an amulet that increased her powers in her hatred. Cadence looked down with a huff and forlorn expression. The spell never effectively directed me. Seeing all my friends and family being drained of their compassion and love does hurt so bad. Sunset resisted the urge to gag and nod politely. So, I knew I had to do something to stop her. I marched into the woods to confront her on behalf of everyone I loved. Cadence looked up, triumphant sunshine on her face. When she tried to use her amulet on me, just increased my powers of love. I broke through her enchantment and released all emotions she had stolen. After that, I helped change their ways and learned to love. Next thing I knew, I was in this weird place. Princess Celestia was telling me I was ready to move on to something much greater. She pointed her horn, then disappeared, and well, that's it. Sunset sat on her bed, mulling Cadence's words over. She had become an alicorn by loving someone? No, that couldn't be it. That was far too simple. Her eyes wandered to the crystal heart on Cadence's flank. What does your cutie mark mean? All this? Cadence looked at it fondly. It represents my talent of helping ponies find true love. I help bring up all the positive emotions ponies have for one another, or create a little spark between them to help get things moving along. Cadence put her house to her gulp and giggled. Mom calls me her little Cupid because of it. Adorable. Sunset resumed her thinking, knowing the constant theme of love Cadence had surrounding her. Her cutie mark represented, but she could practically feel it from other ponies. She reformed some evil witch because of it. She had fully learned and understood the value of love. Cadence had mastered it. Now, you're a princess, Sunset said aloud. Cadence nodded. I guess so. Princess Celestia says she just called me her niece to reduce the shock of another alicorn to the public. Sunset's body tensed up, paralyzed by the toxin of Cadence's words. What? She asked breathlessly. I know. Everything's happening so fast, I can't really believe it either. Just thinking about everything that's happening in the last weeks makes me dizzy. Sunset barely heard her. Her ears were still numb from the previous statement. Niece? Keen's got to be Celestia's niece? Does becoming an Alicorn make you royalty and family? Sunset began to hyperventilate. She had been here for years. Celestia practically adopted her. Why wasn't she family? Why was she just Celestia's special student? No, she had to be more. Celestia was hers. Sunset, are you all right? Calming her breathing, Sunset gave Keans a cold glare. I'm fine! She hopped off her bed and opened the door. She knew what she had to do. Yes, it was clear now. Celestia was testing her, giving her pieces to a puzzle she had to solve on her own. She needed to prove herself worthy of Celestia's full, unconditional love. She needed to master her special talent. No, she needed to master all magic. Then she would ascend and join Celestia's family. Wait, Sunset, where are you going? Gideons ran out the room, watching Sunset tread down the hall. Library. You answered all my questions sufficiently. Gideons cocked her head to the side. Does this mean you're not going to show me around the castle? Sunset closed the book, feeling the same loathing the other Sunset felt all those years ago. It was unsettling, but at least she knew now why. Oh, so this is where young Keenans came into play, Luna said, looking particularly amused. Sunset regarded curiously before her history caught up to her. Oh, right. You weren't free yet when any of that happened. Not yet, though the seal was due to break quite soon. I imagine then my sister was trying to groom this Sunset Simmer into being the wielder of the elemental magic. Well, we can see how that turned out, didn't we? Sunset ran her hoof across the volumes of books, gleaning fragments of memories and feeling from their spines. Perhaps so. I'm still curious to see why and how events came out to play as they have. Luna looked up at the night sky through the glass ceiling. I strongly suspect the tale Celestia told me was selective. I wouldn't put it past her. Curb your anger, Sunset. Sunset paused and drew a deep breath, clearing out her disgruntled emotions. She looked at the book and had been stomped on and narrowed her eyes in confusion. Only she could feel and see nothing from it. The title had been scratched out completely from it. Look at this. She pulled the book out and presented it to Luna. Most curious, as if great lengths were taken to suppress the memory. Sunset brought it to the table and flipped it open. Time to find out why. Book after book, spell after spell, Sunset devoted every second of her free time to learning magic. She would live it. She would breathe it. She would become one with the astral plane, if that's what it took to become an Alicorn. She didn't see Cadence very often now. The first few weeks of her stay in the castle had consisted of her trying to spend time with Sunset. Remembering Celestia's words on friendship, Sunset indulged her just once. The second Cadence had started talking about cute stallions he had seen in school, Sunset bolted. She was now holed up in her spot in the castle library, surrounded by stacks of books. Footnotes and diagrams were scattered about in disorganized piles, long since forgotten trying to keep everything in order. Somewhere across the castle, a clock chimed 12 times. Sunset rolled her eyes, wondering where the hours had gone. With a loud yawn, she stood and departed from the library, using her horn to light the dark corridors. None of the night guards had bothered her. Most of them were accustomed to seeing her return to her room at this time of night. She turned the last corner to her room and smacked into a wall of pink, while a bright light nearly blinded her. Oof. Sunset, I'm so sorry. I didn't see you there. Are you all right? Sunset got up and squinted at Cadence. A direct glare was all but impossible with the amount of light her horn was exuding. Ugh! What are you doing up this late? I was thirsty and wanted a glass of water. Why not just ask one of the servants? Cadence blessed. I didn't want to bother any pony, and I kind of want to try out this elimination spell. Sunset rolled her eyes. Of course. Cadence gave her a wary look. What are you doing so late? Studying in the library. Sunset walked around her and continued for her room. Ken? Cadence hurried to catch up with her. Sunset, I know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Really now. Cadence moved in front of her and halted Sunset's progress. Yes. Becoming an Alicorn will help you earn Celestia's love. You already have it, Sunset. And how do you know? Sunset asked famously. Because your special talent said so? Cadence moved a hoof to her chest and took in a deep breath, pushing away as he exhaled. Listen to me, Sunset. I know what you're going through. I was an orphan on YU until another family found me and took me in. I know it sometimes feels like they're waiting for you to do something extraordinary, but trust me when I say Celestia loves you unconditionally. She loves every pony. I'm not just every pony, Sunset hissed. Our special talents are almost identical, as are our cutie marks. Out of thousands of students, she picked me to be her apprentice. She told me I had the potential to be a princess. She's waiting for me to unlock my true potential. Then she'll accept me with open hooves, and I'll be the inheritor for the throne. She tried to walk around Cadence, but was stopped by a gentle help on her shoulder. Please, talk to her. She stood frozen in time for a moment before Sunset struck her off. She didn't want to be lumped together with every pony else Celestia supposedly loved. She was a princess. It was her job to love them. No, Sunset wanted to stand on a tire higher than the rest. She would do anything to reach it. What was he missing? Sunset continued her circular pacing, wondering how long she had created a rut. She paused to look at the tower of books next to her and shook her head. She'd gone over every magical spell book in the library, practiced day in and day out, practically mastered each individual concept, yet nothing happened. Raising her head to the star-filled heavens, she let out a raged scream and knocked her pile of books over. She'd done everything she could possibly think of. She even practiced her special talent without Celestia's supervision and disintegrated half the carpet in her room. Maybe it's hopeless. Maybe I'm doomed to be forgotten. Sunset shook her head. No, that was quitter talk. She was no quitter. There had to be missed. Maybe she just hadn't practiced hard enough, or maybe Sunset's wide-eyed. Or maybe I haven't mastered every branch of magic. She moved down the row of books, leaving a comfort only lit brazier in the library. With thoughts, she activated a night vision spell and continued on her way. At the very back of the library was a bolted black door with a faint golden aura around it. The Dark Tomes. Guarded more zealously than the books in the star-swirled bearded wing. The room before Sunset contained all of the most powerful, dangerous spellbooks known to pony kind. Sunset wrung her hose. Was he really going to dive this far to become an alicorn? Some said these books could drive a pony mad. But if I can overcome it, it'll prove I deserve to ascend. It was Sunset's last hope. She closed her eyes and layered her magic on top of Celestia's. The enchantments were old and starting to fade from, yet still provided a challenge to disable. Sunset chewed her tongue, working for several long minutes before her spells faded away. She undid the bolt and carefully slipped inside. Lying her horn, Sunset found herself in a very small room with one bookcase. It couldn't be more than 10 books in total, all of them frayed or bound with strange, fussy material. She steeled herself and picked out the first book. It had no title, just a picture of a pony's skull. The moment she opened it, she could hear whispers filling the room and a foul air chilling her fur. She blocked them out, forcing herself to read on. The writing was almost illegible. The pictures that accompanied them grotesque. Still, there was something about the book that compelled her. She no longer had to face it, and just kept reading. Phyllis and whispers were giving her additional notes. Yes, this was the information she had been seeking. With this, she could rule Equestria. She could Sunset! The book dropped from her magic, and all the whispers and cold air instantly vanished. Ponies make war. Before she could do anything else, Sunset found herself hoisted in the air, unable to move in a thick web of magic. She was carried out of the room, watching as it was sealed tight and coated with a new array of enchantments. Only afterwards was she deposited on the floor. What in the name of Equestria were you thinking, Sunset? Sunset looked up at Celestia, reading her angry and disappointed expression. Yet underneath it, she could see fear and concern waiting to burst forth. I'm sorry, Princess, You know how dangerous those spells are! Why would you differently to shake them out? Sunset's mouth felt stuffed with cotton and her stomach filled with lead. She'd never seen or heard Celestia this upset before. Sunset got to her knees and bowed as low as she could. I'm so sorry, Princess Celestia. Please forgive me. Celestia pulled Sunset forward and draped her wings around her, closing her a world consisting of just the two of them. Sunset, of course I forgive you. But I want to know why. You know better. I just wanted to learn every branch of magic, Sunset confessed, including the forbidden arts. Sunset, there are very few ponies across all of history who have read some of those books without losing a piece of their sanity or being lured in by the darkness. The only reason I keep them is for a countermeasure against such forces. I'm sorry. I just... What? Sunset sniffed and buried her face in the pillow that was Celestia's chest. Celestia looked down at her. Want to what? Prove something? Make me proud? Sunset, I'm already proud of you. I've already been. No. Sunset mumbled as softly as Celestia's soft fur. I wanted you to love me. What? Celestia laid down, nuzzled Sunset's mane until she looked up. Her eyes met as Celestia said, Of course I love you, Sunset. Don't ever think otherwise. Sunset felt her eyes begin to tear up as she hid her face again. Princess, every friend I tried to make left me. My birth parents never even wanted me. I didn't want to make friends because I didn't want to be left alone again. Celestia's face softened in a sympathetic frown. Sunset, but you're immortal. You can't leave. Of all the places in the school, you picked me. It's destiny we're together. It has to be. So promise me. Promise me you'll never leave me. Celestia's embrace tightened, bringing Sunset deeper into a warm feathery cocoon. Celestia rocked her back and forth and said, I promise, Sunset. Sunset cringed at her words. It wasn't enough. It was just Princess Celestia comforting her, but Sunset wanted more. She wanted to know. She wanted Celestia to know. Words came out barely above a whisper. Sunset's voice could go no higher. She doubted Celestia even heard her, but the princess slowly unfurled her wings and pulled away so she could look Sunset in the face. Her eyes were wide with surprise and wonder. Sunset, did you? The library door burst open, and the sound of galloping hooves filled the building. A messenger came too, skating a hole in front of them. Your Highness! Hailed up a scroll. Urgent news from the frontier! The buffalo is stampeding the cephalids again! Celestia stood up, taking the scroll on her aura. Understood. She looked back at Sunset, her expression unreadable. We'll finish this conversation later. Celestia and the messenger Colt departed the room, the door slamming shut behind them. Sunset sat alone in the library, tear streaks raining down her face as her own words played her back in her ears. I love you, Mother. Sunset closed the book, reading the title that appeared on the front. Mother. She had called Celestia her mom. Sunset pressed the hoof against her head. This went against every dark feeling had been screaming at her since the journey began. They had all called Celestia a terrible pony, a liar unfit to rule Equestria. Were they simply misguided fiends Sunset had picked up from her trip through time? No! They still belonged to her! Celestia never gave a straight answer. Maybe they stemmed from all this. She looked over to Luna, where her face scrunched in displeasure. Sister, you neglected to have mentioned this tiny detail during your recount. Luna snorted and tossed her mane. So you think she reciprocated those feelings? On the contrary, I believe she did, making whatever happened between them that much more difficult to bear. Sunset faced the bookshelf, searching for something that looked relevant. She raised her hoof out and nearly tumbled through the shelf, nearly catching herself at the last moment. What the heck? The room advanced into an otherworldly fog. All its contents began to fade into the mist. The skylight and floor vanished, replaced by a blank white canvas. It seemed you all waking up, Sunset. Luna's voice echoed through the mist. Sunset wanted to reply, but found herself no mouth to do so. In fact, her entire body vanished. Worry not. When you next dream, I shall return. The entire dreamscape turned white with haze that blurred into Sunset's thoughts as well. On the other side of it, she could hear calling her name, gently shaking her to awaken. The cabin was stuffed with mounted heads of various creatures, both sentient and non. Sunset found it terribly tacky, but paid it no mind. She sat at the captain's desk, two holographic images sitting in front of her. The red pony walked over to the white pony, and the white one vanished. The purple one appeared in its place. The red one attacked it mercilessly. Sunset found the spectacle wasn't as enjoyable as she thought it would be. She dispelled the image and spun her chair around to look at the large window behind her. It gave a fantastic view of grassy plains and emerald forests she was flying over. It entertained Sunset for a moment, but she slouched in her chair, her brushed across her alicorn amulet. She let out a pained sigh. How long it been since she thought about that word, about those moments in her life. Do you ever think about them, Celestia? Do you ever think about me? Sunset's horn glowed again, and a full-scale image of Celestia's face appeared before her. I'm thinking about all time. What you're forcing me to do? Sunset pouted. She leaned forward in her seat. Mean that. She put on a savage grin, showing off all her teeth. I still love you, Mother. That's why I'm doing all this. You'll finally be proud of me. I'll show you don't need Twilight Sparkle or anyone else. Just me. Always me. The knock on her door entered her reverie as he canceled her spell. Come in, she said, thoroughly annoyed. Razor opened the door and crossed the threshold before bowing. Lily Huffington, your master say. Already in place? Sunset asked. Aye, everything's ready. Good. Be aware, Razor, this is your last chance. If you fail, well, let's just say you're not getting paid in royal gold will be the least of your worries. Understood, your master. Sunset ignored the disgruntled undertone and allowed him to leave before a grin returned. Well then, Twilight Sparkle, let's see what's more important to you. Your friends or your subjects. By day's end, I'll have my crown and a pathetic wannabe in my hose. I'll tell your friends lie dead before me. She stood up and approached the window, seeing candlelight appear in the far distance. The rising sun making gold like golden fire. I'm going to clear the board now before I come home. Just sit in your lofty bastion and watch it unfurl. Our dance will come in at the end. There's no one to interrupt us.